What's up? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here and being subbed. If you're not, hit the button, and if you're listening on YouTube, hit the like. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into this holy mess.
Have you ever been swallowed? Swallowed. I would have been. Have you ever been swallowed? Swallowed. Swallowed up. 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 Have you ever been swallowed? Swallowed. Swallowed up.
Alright guys, so I recently did some commentary and I was talking about the fact that tdjakes didn't show up to service at his church the Sunday after Diddy got arrested. And I just was wondering, was there a coincidence? I wasn't saying that he was locked up, but just the reason that was given as to why he wasn't there didn't make much sense to me. But in that commentary, I said that there was something that really disturbed me about him that I was going to share in a separate commentary. So I want to play this clip from a sermon that he did at his church, the Potter's House, not very long ago. And the selfishness of this capitalist bishop that some people call America's bishop is just absolutely astounding to me, because this was the essence, because it's funny, the title of that sermon was called The Collective Expression of His Essence, but this part of this sermon was the essence of capitalism, and that's what I feel like has gotten him somewhat in trouble, and definitely in connection with Diddy, that a lot of people connect him to, because he was allegedly his mentor. That's what Seancombs said, that was his mentor. And then people started calling him a power bottom, saying that he was at the freak offs and all of that stuff. Listen, I don't want to see any evidence, but unless there is proof that he was actually getting down with the get down in terms of that deep down dark mess that Diddy was doing, I won't believe that. But we do know that he was at the parties. We do know that he was at the parties. And I don't believe that every single person that went to the parties was getting involved with getting smashed, using drugs, all of that other stuff. So I'm not going to put that on tdjakes, but I do have my beliefs about him in terms of his sexuality, my personal opinion. I'm not going to go into all of that, but he 100% is a capitalist. And in order to get to the place where he is living the life and the lifestyle that he has lived, he got there by being a capitalist. He didn't get there because God blessed him to have all of these riches and wealth. People need to understand that. Really, I don't think God has an issue with people having money, but it's when money has you. And at this point, money has him. Money is his source, not God. So that's why I see him more as a motivational speaker than an actual preacher. I see him more of being a motivational speaker that uses the Bible and some scriptures from it to pump people up and motivate them, but also to manipulate. So this sermon that he was so-called preaching was the essence of manipulation. I'm going to put the full video link in the description box, but I just want you to listen to this part on what he had to say, and you let me know what you think.
I was reading an article the other day talking about America, that America is one of the few countries, if not the only country in the world after the pandemic that never went back to work. We're the only country that's having a fight about going back to work. Go to Italy, go to Rome, go to Japan, go anywhere else. We're the only people who insist on working from home. Because we are more interested in our convenience than our productivity. I know you don't like it, but I'm just telling you what I read. I'm just doing a book report. You ain't got to like it. So don't get your lips all swole up at me. Never mind the fact that you have brought about the biggest calamity in the history of America with real estate, as all industrial businesses and offices are being shut down. And the reason you can't get a bank loan is that the feds have demanded that the banks reserve enough money to eat up the buildings that you won't go in. But as long as you can walk around in your jammies and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you don't care that people can't buy houses, that cities are having to rearrange the entire city plan to commit themselves to your convenience. Every decision you make affects other people. Y'all don't want me to preach the truth. Y'all can't handle the truth. Y'all can't handle it. And yet you are the greatest nation in the world, and yet you're the only nation that won't go back to work. Teachers won't go back to teaching. There's a shortage of nurses in the hospital. There's a crisis in this country because we love convenience more than purpose. So let them get sick and die. Let them grow up and can't read. We used to be the envy of the world academically. Number 1 in education, now we're number 25. We had more marriages in slavery. No, this is a fact. Check me. Fact check me. Fact check me. We had more marriages in slavery than we do now. We're down to about 32%. When I was young, it was 50-something, and we were shot to 32% because everybody is so selfish. Anything that requires compromise, we run from it. Anything that requires inconvenience, we run from it. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. And the whole national economy is riveted by the decision of somebody who worked for 25 years and decided, if I don't work from home, I'm not working. Now all the buildings are shutting down and the banks are prepared to gobble up the debt because the leases are up and the loans are due. And it's also you can stay at home with boo-boo and make hot bologna sandwiches and watch Days of Our Lives and only get on the computer when it's a Zoom and tell us you're a full-time employee and you want a raise. You want a raise. Let me get off there. You want a raise. You want me to pay you more while you do less. Never understanding that God created us to be a community. That we get something from each other that we cannot get in isolation. That we are better together than we are apart. that I don't care how fine the sister is in here, she can't have a baby by herself. I don't care how many degrees he got, the man can't have a baby by himself. We are only fruitful when we make connection. You can be healthy, but you can't be fruitful as long as you stay in isolation. Never mind the fact, the only thing that God complained about in the creation was it's not good for man to be alone. But your trauma has driven you into total isolation. And I get it, because one of the things that trauma does is make you want to be alone. I'd rather be alone with my lights off. I want to be alone even if the kids don't get to eat. I want to be alone even if I break the heart of the one I love. I want to be alone. Why? Because my trauma only makes me feel safe in isolation when I'm alone. And so I had a daughter, but I'm not going to be a real mother. Because even with my own baby, I don't feel safe. I want to be alone. So we are good with being filled with the Holy Ghost as long as we get to be alone. I 10x the number I got in this building right now online. Some of it is because people live too far away. Some of it is because people go to work. Some of it is because people are close enough to drive, but they are not healed enough . Don't worry, I'm going to mess it up. Y'all can clean it up after I'm gone. Don't worry about it. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. The problem is when Christ stepped into the woman, he became incarnate, and they called him Jesus, and they also called him Emmanuel. Watch him time. God tabernacled with us. In what I'm going somewhere, bear with me. God tabernacled with us. The dwell amongst us God. It was God coming to hang out with us. Because you cannot lead people you don't touch. You can't stay safe and stay away from the patient and impact the condition. I love being a doctor, but I hate patients. I love being a mechanic, but I don't want to be around cars. You need to check your dream against your trauma and decide, do you want your trauma or do you want your dream? Because your dream necessitates that you confront your own trauma, or you won't be effective at a distance. Even God could not redeem us staying away from us. So he came, he came where we were. He gave up his pre-existent glory, his omnipotence, his omnipresence, and his omniscience. He gave up the 24 elders and the sea of glass. He poured out his pre-existent divinity and came and wrapped himself up in flesh and got sleepy for the first time, got tired for the first time, got weary for the first time, dealt with unbelief for the first time, just to be around us, because he had to be a kinsman redeemer. And if he wasn't kin to me, he couldn't redeem me. So he had to go through what I went through so that when I pray, he can be touched by the feeling of my infirmity. Because as God, he couldn't relate to temptation. He had to go through lust and agony and pain so that whatever you're crying out about, he said, yeah, I know how you feel. Good God, I feel the Holy Ghost about to sweep up in this place. Touch 3 people and say, he already knows what you're trying to say. He already knows what you're trying to say. He already knows what you're trying to pray about. He already knows. He already knows. He came so he would know what it was like to be in your situation. Can I go a little bit deeper? Y'all ain't tired? All right. So Christ is in the flesh what the tabernacle was in the wilderness. He is God.
So you heard that, and I was so offended by that. He's pretty much blaming people, employees, staff, workers, the majority of the types of people that support his ministry with their money, of being lazy losers who don't want to get up and go to work. Like, because you want to stay at home and work, and you want to walk around in your jammies and your fluffy slippers, and you don't want to go out to work in these people's offices now, and they're having to shut down, and they're having to sell their property, and people can't get bank loans for their companies. And to me, it sounded like he was projecting. To me, it sounded like maybe he was working on some deals that have fallen through because of the economy and how things have been shaken and shifted during the pandemic. Because wasn't there a deal that he had with Wells Fargo? So yeah, there was a press release that was issued in 2023. Wells Fargo and Company and the tdjakes Group, which includes tdjakes Real Estate Ventures, LLC, TDJ Enterprises, and tdjakes Foundation, today announced a strategic partnership to drive economic vitality and inclusivity in communities across America. Over the next 10 years, a partnership between these organizations could result in up to $1 billion in capital and financing from Wells Fargo, as well as grants from the Wells Fargo Foundation, with the goal of revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering economic opportunity, and creating long-term change in communities most in need. The partnership marks the first of its kind in driving long-term transformational impact over the next decade. This was announced in 2023 in the second quarter. We are excited to collaborate with the tdjakes Group as they play a key role in the transformation of communities that will have a lasting impact for generations to come, said Charlie Scharf, CEO of Wells Fargo. This strategic partnership goes beyond a one-off capital investment and underscores our continued commitment to diverse and inclusive communities. We look forward to seeing the meaningful difference we'll make together in communities across the country. Let me tell you something. That sermon that he was preaching, that was not from the throne of God. That was not from on high. That was not, he heard a word from the Lord and he said, no. He is using his church, which is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, to get these people in his church to mold and to bend the way and be shaped the way that he wants them to be shaped. This is about him. This is about what's beneficial for him. So for him to sit up there and have the nerve and the audacity to speak down and preach down to these people, talking about, yeah, you're selfish. You don't want to get up and go to work. You don't want to go in these offices. And now businesses are having to shut down and they're having to, okay. And your point is, how was that the workers' fault? Because trust and believe that if he were in the same position that a lot of these people were in, he would be feeling the same way too. Nobody wants to live a life where they're being manipulated and used. And yeah, there have been a few people that have gotten the opportunity to work from home and they've taken advantage of the situation and they've not been doing the work and they're clocking in and then they're doing other stuff. Listen, that goes without saying. But shoot, people do that in these offices where they clock in, they're behind their cubicle or whatever, and they're just clocking the hours and clocking the time. My son is a supervisor at the company that he works at, and he tells me all the time how it's just frustrating that people come in and they just clock the hours and they don't want to do the work. But that's just life. You have people that work and you have people that don't. But for him to not consider that the position that he's in right now and to so-called preach sermons like that and not realize how tone deaf that is when he's got this strategic partnership with Wells Fargo and he's just like tone deaf. He is so far removed from the stuff that I feel like if God did place him in a position to be a preacher, that these big mega churches like his, it's just too much. It's just way too much. There's a ton of churches, small churches, medium size, and these mega churches. But I ain't even gonna lie. In my personal opinion, I feel like in some ways with the pandemic, it was a way of kind of downsizing a lot of these churches because who needs a mega church? Especially when you have the online presence, people could just attend these places online. You don't have to build these bigger buildings so that more people can come in, like his mentee Keon Henderson talking about he wanted people to give him money, 2,100 people to send $2,100 in 21 days. That was the nerve and the audacity of him to even suggest something like that. And I don't think he's anywhere close to that goal. I thought he was going to get it, honestly. He may still get it, just not in the time period that he was expecting and demanding to get it. But we'll talk about Keon in a separate episode. But you guys let me know what you think about what tdjakes had to say, because to me, this was all about greed and capitalism. This had nothing to do with the people and how they're not striving for the greatest and the best anymore. He's just as much of a capitalist as his mentee Sean P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Love Combs is, and you see where that got him. Because of the greed and the excess and the demented mind and the debauchery that he was enjoying, it got him to the place where he is right now. So tdjakes better be careful. I'm not saying he would get caught up in the same type of stuff that Sean Combs did, but financial wise and all of that stuff being mixed up with the church, listen, I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. You can say what you want to say in the comments, so let me know your thoughts. Thanks for being here, liking, and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.